Deep Threat Sports Network, welcome back. We're back at it again. I think Colin might have cooled down from the previous episode. I think Brian's a little mellowed out here. I think the pouch has got. He's good. He's good. Everyone's good. But you guys know me. I like to stir the pot, so I had to wear my Mizzou shirt just to remind you guys what happened. I just want to just keep reminding you guys what happened. But this isn't
what a tool.
Hey,
yeah, I'm about to log off.
Hey, I am here to keep you guys on your toes, and we like to keep people on their toes as well. So, guys, ladies, gentlemen, everyone that watches our episode, we've got something a little new for you today. So that's why I say we're gonna keep you on your toes. Me, Colin, Bryant, we came up with another segment for our episode this week. Yes, we're gonna have still the Heisman, but we're actually only gonna give you our number one Heisman vote, who we got winning the Heisman as of now. And then we're also going to give you, again, our top 25 like we always do, which is going to be very different than the AP. Then a little cherry on top is going to be, we're going to give you our top 4 from each Power 4 conference and our top G5 team. This is going to be based off, what the season looks like, what the conference looks like, how they've played out. So it's not so much like who's the better team right now, it's who will be the better team at the end of the season. So we're all going to give you our top 4. You guys do with that what you will, but it's going to be good. So without further ado, let's go ahead and hit it straight to the Heisman. Heisman front runner. I'm going to go ahead and go first because we never discuss these. We just kind of come up with our own and then we talk about them. But I did look at mine, Bryant's, and Collins. I'm the only oddball here. I'm going to go ahead and throw that out there. I've got Jalen Milroe. I still have Jalen Milroe at 1274, 11 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. And here's my thing with Jalen Milroe. He's going to play higher quality opponents. Alabama.
He's got to win out. I
agree.
He has to win after losing to Vanderbilt.
I absolutely agree. And here's the thing. I do think that Alabama can win out. And I think it's going to be by the hand of Jalen Milroe. So that's why I think he's got more pull for me just because he's playing a hard schedule. Now, I'm going to go ahead and throw it out there. I actually said it to Colin off camera earlier already.
Say it again. Say it again for the people in the back. Say it again.
Ashton Jeanty is like right on Jalen Milroe's ass. Jalen Milroe, you throw one interception, Ashton Jeanty's taking it. And that's just
me to dinner, David.
Hey, I'll take you to the Waffle House.
Hey, what's funny about this is I'm going to go ahead and spoil it right now. No need to spend a ton of time on it. Bryant and I both have Ashton Jeanty at number 1. We've been preaching it here over and over and over. Pretty sure Ashton Jeanty's like 100 yards, somewhere like around the 100-yard mark, less than Jalen Milroe. And Jalen Milroe throws the football. Ashton Jeanty runs the football, David. And he's right there on Jalen Milroe's ass in total yardage. Hey, he's also got more touchdowns. You know what else, Dave? He's played less quarters. Ashton Jeanty's not even playing full football games no more. I saw a stat that his odds were like minus 115 or minus 120 to rush for 3 touchdowns in the last football game.
His anytime touchdown was minus 2,000.
That is the most insane thing I've ever heard. And he ran for 3 of them in the first half. So if you bet that, 1, you have balls that clank, and 2, he did it in the first half, Dave. I don't think this is a discussion anymore. I don't give a shit who he's playing. I don't care if he's playing Murray State 12 times. The guy is lighting it up. Put some respect on his name, Dave. Take Jalen Milroe's ass out of here. Move him down your draft boards. The only guy that should be talked about right now is Ashton Jeanty. Plain and simple. That's it. I don't even want to spend that much time on this. It's not even fun anymore. Hey, right now we're just looking more intelligent each week by the Ashton Jeanty conversation that we started having in week 1. So, hey, you're probably not going to get very good odds on it anymore, but if you've already bet it once, double down. You bet it twice, triple down. 3 times, just keep betting. I don't understand anymore. Just keep betting it. Brian, tell the people.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Jeanty's averaging 10.9 yards per carry, 95 rushes for a 1,031
yards. First down every
yards.
carry.
He's an automatic first down every time he touches the ball. This is a no-brainer. Vegas agrees with us. Ashton Jeanty's the highest, or has the lowest odds right now to win the Heisman. So this was a no-brainer.
boys, gentlemen, the only reason, and I'm gonna go ahead and tell you guys that way everybody's aware. The only reason I have Ashton Jeanty behind Jalen Milroe is strictly because I'm looking at the whole season. Because he's a running back. He is pretty
wrong answer.
Hear me out. He is Boise. No, it's not the fact that he's a running back. It's the fact that he's going to take that many hits because he is Boise State.
He's only playing the first half.
Listen,
he only has like 13 carries.
As we get further in the season, he's gonna get beat up. Like, he's a running back. He's gonna get beat up. And I'm not saying he's not great. Hey, he's great. But if I think they will get into the playoffs, I think they will take that 12th spot. And when they get into the playoffs and they are playing big boys, he's gonna get beat up. Especially if let's say they go out and play Alabama, they play at Georgia, he's gonna get beat up, and that's gonna.
Bama's defense ain't stopping him. Diego Pavia just made Bama's defense look like Swiss cheese. I mean, what do you think Ashton Jeanty is going to do? Jesus Christ! The only way I'll give you credit on the Jalen Milroe thing in one aspect, and this is the only way Jalen Milroe wins it at this point after a loss to Vanderbilt, because that's shit that Heisman winners don't do. So the way he can win this now is Bama's defense is not the typical Bama defense. Their secondary's lost. They're giving up a lot of points. So Jalen Milroe and Alabama are going to score a ton of points, and they're going to have to do it on the shoulders of Jalen Milroe, kind of like you talked about earlier. So, yes, Jalen Milroe can get his name back at the top of this list. They've got to win out. They got to win shootouts, and that will help him a ton. And, yeah, I mean, Ashton Jeanty's going to have to leave the team for some reason for anybody else to have a chance at this. I mean, that's all there is to it right now.
And to your point, Colin, for me, Ashton Jeanty can only have one bad game this whole season. That's kind of what same concept with Jalen Milroe. He's got to win out. He's got to crush the rest.
Boise State has to keep winning. For their playoff hopes and for Jeanty to win the Heisman, yes, Boise State has to continue to win on his shoulders. I do agree.
I wouldn't even say they have to keep winning. I just think he has to keep putting up those numbers, because no one gives a shit about Boise State after this year. I mean, Boise State, Ashton Jeanty, you hear about Ashton Jeanty more than you hear about Boise State. That's just facts. And my thing is, it doesn't matter if Boise State loses the rest of the season, but if Ashton Jeanty can put up those numbers every game, he's got to be the Heisman winner. And it is what it is. Even if they lose out, I don't care. He is just putting up the numbers. And I'm not here to argue for Ashton Jeanty. I'm just speaking facts from an unbiased opinion. So those of you that are high on Ashton Jeanty, I'm sure can resonate with that. Like, it is what it is. If he keeps putting up those numbers, there's no arguing. Even if they lose out, truthfully, even if they lose out.
Yeah, I really think this is only even a discussion is the fact that he plays for Boise. That's the only thing that's hurting at this point. But with those stats, the way he's running football, you absolutely have to put him at one right now. No hands down. I mean, he's just unbelievable. So we'll see how it goes. He's got to keep it up. I agree with you. He's got to keep putting these stats up to have a chance to win the Heisman. But he's done it for 6 weeks now, so why doubt him?
It's not a fluke no more, man. It's not a fluke no more. But like you said, Bryant, the reason, too, why he takes off on this is he's a walking first down. He's averaging over 10 yards a carry. Going to be tough to lose a football game when your running back is averaging a first down every time he touches the football. So hats off to Ashton Jeanty, Boise State. Let's give some credit to the offensive line just because, hey, man, he probably couldn't do it without them. I mean, the guy does break tackle after tackle, but the offensive line helps, man. You got to have an offensive line to run the ball. So hats off to Ashton Jeanty. We're just going to keep riding that train we have been all season. We're not going to get off of it now.
Absolutely. But finishing up, it seems like all we did was talk about Ashton Jeanty. But the next one we're going to talk about is big schools. We're going to talk about the SEC, the Southeastern Conference. Who do we have as our top four? Colin, I just want to hear your top four right off the bat. Who are your top four? And then I'll go, and then Brian will go, or it doesn't matter who goes. But just because we're all different. So, Colin, what do you have as your top four and why?
Yeah, so just kind of being open here, we're going to talk to you guys kind of like we would if we were just practicing before we shot or having a little pre-game meeting here. I think what we do here is we all announce our four teams, and then we kind of go back and review it and have open discussion amongst the three of us after we all say our top four. So real quick, my top four, I have Georgia at number 1. I have them wrapping up the season at 11-1, with their toughest remaining opponents being Texas at home, at Ole Miss, and Tennessee. I have Georgia winning all three of those football games, ending the season at 11-1. Number 2, I have Ole Miss wrapping up the season at 10-2. At LSU, I have them winning that football game. Hosting Oklahoma, I have them winning that football game. Hosting Georgia, I do have them losing that football game. 3, I have Texas going 10-2. I have them winning at Oklahoma, losing at home against Georgia, losing at Texas A&M to end the season. We called that on this network before the season started. The way Texas A&M's looking right now, not changing my opinion after last week, have them dropping that game at A&M. Number 4, I have Texas A&M finishing the season at 10-2. I have them only having one conference loss against LSU, and I have them beating Texas. So really, if that's the case and they end it with one conference loss, they might just be right up there underneath Georgia at the number 2 spot. Their second loss, obviously coming from week 1 against Notre Dame, so that's how I have them getting 2 losses. But Bryant, let's hear your 4.
Similar but different a little bit. I got Texas at 1, Georgia at 2, Bama at 3, A&M at 4. I just think Texas is playing the best football in the SEC right now. They've went on the road and beat Michigan. Like Colin said, they have Oklahoma. I think they beat that. I think they beat them. I really do think they beat Georgia, and I really do think they beat A&M at the end of the season. So I think they're the best team in the SEC as it sits right now, and probably at the end of the season. Georgia is a close second. They played a tough game against Alabama, but they have kind of a favorable schedule going down the stretch. So I think they'll be right there. At 2, Bama, they did slip up this past week. They do have a rather tough schedule coming up. They have to play LSU. They have to play a few other tough teams. But I still have them at 3. I still believe in that team. I think they can pick up what they struggled with this past week and move forward and play better football down the stretch. And then A&M, I mean, yeah, they kicked the shit out of Mizzou last week. Mizzou's not a good football team, but if Wigman plays like that, like we mentioned in the last episode, and the defense flying around the field like they said, or like they did last week, I have them at 4. Dave, what do you think?
So mine's pretty similar to yours, Brian. Truthfully, I do have Texas at number 1 because I do think they are playing the best football, and they also have 2 good quarterbacks. Shoot, Mizzou doesn't have 1 good quarterback. I'm just throwing it out there. But then I agree with you. Texas beats. I know a lot of people think Georgia's going to come back. I think Texas beats Georgia. I think Texas just finishes out. They could have finished out undefeated. But I do think their only game that might be. I think they can comfortably beat A&M. They're going to beat Oklahoma, and the Georgia game is going to be a close game. But I think they do squeeze away there. And then Georgia, again, Georgia's going to lose to Texas, so they're now at 10-2. So that's why I have them drop down to my number 2. Yeah, they're going to probably blow out Ole Miss. They're probably going to beat Tennessee. And then at my number 3, I have Texas A&M. And I have Texas A&M because I do believe that sometimes that first game, you just got to get those jitters out, and they lost to LSU, which is still a top 25 team. But again, to your point, I think Connor Wegman, if he continues to play as he is, Texas A&M can be dangerous. I mean, and why I have Bama at number 4 is because I looked at their schedule, and man, that is a rough schedule. Like, you already got 1 loss, so your confidence is super high. Yes, they're coming out to try to prove a point, but I do think Bama drops another game here, and that's why I have them at number 4. If not 2, they might drop another 2 games here.
So let me ask you guys a question. Do you guys still think that Texas win against Michigan is a big win? I mean, because we've seen Michigan not look the part. We've seen Michigan not look good. We all talked about how we're selling Michigan down the road at this point. So it's tough for me to really grade Texas as high as we used to on that Michigan win. Obviously, yes, going in the big house winning a football game is no easy task for anybody, so I am going to give credit for that. I just don't think it's as big of a win as we thought. And the reason I end up having Georgia wrap this thing up with 11-1 is because I think we saw their worst half of football that we're going to see all season. I really do. Kirby Smart's not going to let this team go down like that. It's just not going to happen. He's going to use that first half against Alabama football every week in the locker room. He is the epitome of poster material. Anything he can get his hands on to motivate his football team, he will use. And I think that this football team is best set up down the stretch to really make a run at this thing. We haven't seen Texas go play SEC talent week in and week out ever before. They were in the Big 12, and hell, they were dropping games to Oklahoma. Texas is known for taking weeks off and squeaking out low margin of victories against lesser Big 12 opponents. They can't afford that down the stretch against SEC caliber teams. That's why I think Texas gets got a couple times down the stretch. And I think you see teams like Georgia, who are led by Kirby Smart, who have been down this road before, really take over this conference. This was the hardest conference for me to put together, in my opinion, because like I talked to you guys about it before. I think they're cannibalizing from the inside out right now. They're beating the hell out of each other. So it makes it really tough. And I just want to hear your guys' take on why you guys are both selling Ole Miss out. And I'm not saying I'm right. I just want to hear what you guys think about why you guys have Bama in over Ole Miss at this point. They've both had a bad loss. I'm going to grade Ole Miss's loss a little bit better than Bama's. And I think Ole Miss, to me, truthfully, has more offensive talent than Bama does. You eliminate Ryan Williams off of Bama's football team, and I don't think Bama has much going for them at all. And they have a vulnerable offensive line. They have a vulnerable secondary. I don't think Bama, if I had to do 5 teams, they'd probably be by number 5, maybe number 6. But I don't think they get in this top 4, fellas. I don't think they make the playoffs at this point. Maybe I'm over-exaggerating or overreacting.
With Ole Miss, you can say the same thing with them. If you eliminate Trey Harris, they don't have anybody, in my opinion. So
I agree. I'm with Brian. And
they lost to go ahead, Dave.
They lost to Kentucky. Kentucky, their only big win per se is they beat Ohio, not Ohio State, Ohio University.
Well, that ain't a big win.
Exactly. So really, if you look at their schedule, like they got, I would almost say, blown out by South Carolina. They lost to Georgia, which it was a decent game. And Colin, you made a point of that was probably Georgia's worst half. So then I go, okay, well, if Kentucky hung in with the worst Georgia half that we've had, then Ole Miss, I don't think they're in there. Like I think Ole Miss.
Why I give Ole Miss this credit is we saw Ole Miss score 27 points against South Carolina's defense, who in my opinion, I think South Carolina's probably got the best defensive front in the SEC. And we saw them hang 27 points on it. So Ole Miss looking ahead, LSU's defense, awful. Oklahoma's defense, better than LSU's, but if Danny Stutzman's not making 15 tackles a game, their defense isn't that great. And then, yes, they do play Georgia, and I have them dropping that game against Georgia. So that's why I had them going 10-2. Really looking ahead for me, I think it sets up the best for Ole Miss versus Bama's schedule, which is why I have Ole Miss at number 2 here.
I can easily see them getting 3 losses, though. I mean, they still got to go to Arkansas as well, and Arkansas just beat Tennessee. So, like you said, I think this was the hardest conference to pick. Our top 4 could honestly be totally wrong at the end of the season, or it could be exactly spot on with these 4 teams, 4 or 5 teams.
May see Vandy get hot. May see Vandy get hot inside that first spot.
Yep.
Well, hey, real quick before we move on to the next conference, a team that none of us have here is Tennessee. Wild, man. I think if we would have did this 2 weeks ago, we probably all would have had Tennessee in our top 3 and probably not had A&M in this conversation. And Tennessee just looks really, really bad right now. So they got to get right as well. But yeah, man, this is what makes it fun. We're all different here, and I love the discussion. You guys are definitely correct, but we could say the same thing about Ole Miss that we can say about every single team on this list. Really, I just think it sets up really well down the stretch for Ole Miss on the schedule. That's why I did this.
Hey, fair enough. But I enjoy disagreeing, and I want to hear, Colin, why you think a certain way, why Brian thinks a certain way. But another one that's going to be, where we don't agree is Big Ten. Big Ten, I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys who I have. I have Ohio State at number 1. I don't see them losing the game the rest of the year. Penn State at number 2. Yes, Penn State, I do think they're good, but I don't think they're better than Ohio State. That's just really what it comes down to. I just don't think they're better than Ohio State. And I think Ohio State has an easier schedule moving forward. Then I got Oregon at number 3. I'm not real high on Oregon, truthfully. I think Dylan Gabriel isn't that good. I'm not saying he's bad, but he's not what we expected him to be coming out of Oklahoma. In Indiana, I got them there at 4 just because they're undefeated. But the second they get lost, somebody's taking a spot. And that's just, it is what it is.
All right, I'm gonna go through my top 4 real quick after Dave here. I got Ohio State at 1, Oregon at 2, Penn State at 3, and Indiana at 4. Like Dave said, I think Ohio State's the most complete team in the Big Ten. Their defense is playing very well. They got 2 studs at the receiver position in Smith and Igbuka, and then 2 stud running backs. And then Will Howard's also playing pretty good at the quarterback position as well. So I think they're most complete team in the Big Ten where it sits right now. Oregon, they're playing good. They're playing pretty good. They played some decent games. They barely beat Boise State. That's kind of a red flag, but we'll see how they play down the stretch. I think they lose to Ohio State, but I think they win out the rest of their games. Penn State, I almost put them at 4, but I don't think they were better. I thought they were better than Indiana. I just do not believe in Penn State. They start every game off super slow. It kind of reminds me of how some certain teams that we root for always starts off slow and then can't seem to come through in the end. I don't think they're that bad, but I don't know. I think they lean on their running game too much. And if they get ahead or get behind early, they won't be able to lean on that anymore. And I think they can lose a few games. And then Indiana is actually on fire right now. I think they can keep it going. I do think they beat Michigan. I do really think their only loss is probably Ohio State. So this is also a pretty tough conference to pick. But Colin, what do you think?
So Brian, I agree to disagree. I think it's a very tough conference to pick the order. I don't think it's a tough conference for me to pick the top 4, especially the top 3. It looks like we all have the same three teams in our top 3, but I have a little bit of a different order. And I'm going to put Penn State at number 1 for me. I have Penn State going 12-0. I think, to your point, Brian, we have seen Penn State move a little slow, but I don't think Penn State's pulled it all out just yet. I think they've still held some in the bag, knowing that they're going to out-talent, out-muscle some teams to go ahead and win some football games. I mean, hey,
you have a very favorable schedule.
Their resume so far has been fairly good, man. They got a win against West Virginia when people were doubting them against the West Virginia team. They came in, took care of business, game 1. They beat a ranked Illinois team who looked really, really good at the time. You know, they beat UCLA, who compared to most teams who they play, I mean, UCLA is a tough opponent compared to most of these teams' schedules. So I have Penn State at number 1, going 12-0 the remainder of the season. And their toughest 2 games left is at USC and a home game against Ohio State. And I think you see Happy Valley show out against Ohio State and make things tough. And I have Ohio State at number 2. And why I did that is their loss to Penn State. I think they're going to lose that game. And I think they're going to lose that game because, fellas, Ohio State, in my opinion, Dave, I couldn't disagree with you more, has the toughest schedule moving forward in the Big Ten. They play Oregon, at Penn State, home against Indiana, who looks really, really good, and home against Michigan, who's a team that no matter what we say about Michigan right now, Ohio State and Ryan Day really struggle. And Ryan Day is going to lose sleep every night the week of that football game because if he loses to Michigan again, we're having a different conversation about Ryan Day. I don't think we should be, but you continue to lose to Michigan. That's all they care about at Ohio State. At number 3, I have Oregon. I have them going 11-1 with their only loss being to Ohio State. Bryant, you kind of talked about the red flag against Boise State. For me, it's looking less and less like a red flag every week, the way Boise State's playing football, and looks more and more like a good win. So I have Oregon going 11-1 with their only loss being Ohio State. They play Illinois and Michigan down the stretch at Michigan. I have them winning both of those football games. At number 4, the surprise of all surprises in the Big Ten. Indiana, we all have at number 4 on our list. None of us would have thought we were having that conversation coming into the season. Kurt Signetti taking this football team over. He's all the way in. He's got the fans all the way in. And fellas, I have Indiana going 11-1. With their only loss being at Ohio State down the stretch, their toughest 2 games, Michigan at home, Ohio State at Ohio State, and they will win one of those 2 football games, I think. But that leads me to my next question for you guys. Who's the best quarterback in the Big Ten of these 4 football teams?
I think Dylan Gabriel probably has the most potential.
But
he hasn't shown it yet.
He's not hitting it. I mean, we're halfway through the season. He's had his time, kind of like Brady Cook. They've had their time. Let's try something else.
I don't know. They've kind of all been pretty mid, in my opinion. Will Howard really has probably been the most successful up to this point in the season. Drew Allers is kind of keeping the train on the tracks, but he, like I said earlier, he leans on the running backs. I don't know. That's a very tough question. What do you think, Colin?
There's one right answer here, in my opinion. Curtis Rourke for the University of Indiana. 1,752 passing yards and 14 touchdowns thus far. That is my answer. 2 interceptions. This guy's playing real football right now, fellas. He transfers in from a lesser football program. I think, where did he play at? I think he played at Ohio. Did he play at Ohio? He played at a
That
MAC
sounds
school.
that
I
sounds
think it
right.
was Ohio. But he comes in here with Kurt Signetti, and this offense is clicking, gentlemen. My answer, for sure, is Curtis Rourke. Will Howard doesn't blow me away at Ohio State. He does enough to win football games with the talent around him, and he makes some big-time throws. I'm not trying to dog on him. They're undefeated. They look good. But I don't think he's better than Curtis Rourke right now. I don't think Dylan Gabriel's better than Curtis Rourke right now. And Drew Aller definitely isn't better than Curtis Rourke right now. And I ride the hell out of Drew Aller's jock. And at some point, him and Andy Kotelnicki are going to make me look like a genius or a complete and utter dipshit. And I hope I look like a genius because I've been riding him all the way. But my answer is Curtis Rourke. This guy gets no recognition. Curtis Rourke, final answer.
Yeah, I can definitely get behind that for sure, especially the way he's been playing this season up to the point. Well, we'll see how he can finish off the end of the season. He's got some tough games coming up, like we mentioned. So if he keeps playing like he does now, I definitely agree with you. I think he could end up being the best quarterback that was in the Big Ten this season.
The most underrated quarterback in the country if this thing stays the course for Indiana.
Absolutely. I mean, you can't argue the numbers. But another conference that was tough too was the Big 12. I mean, there were so many that, I even after coming up with my top four, I was like, man, I just feel like I'm leaving somebody out. Like I'm doing somebody wrong. I'm pulling up an NCAA on Florida State kind of deal. Bryant, who do you have for your top four? I want to hear your top four.
Looking at everybody's, we're all very similar, but I have Iowa State at 1, Kansas State at 2, BYU at 3, and Utah at 4. It really comes down to the 1 and 2, who beats who in that scenario. I think either K-State or Iowa State can win that game, but I gave Iowa State the nod. They've just been playing a little bit better, in my opinion, recently. So then that makes K-State at 2 for me with the loss to Iowa State. Third, BYU. I think they've been playing pretty good. They did have a slip up last week with the losses that they had. So they do have a tough game coming up with Oklahoma State and also at Utah. So that's why they have them at 3 and then Utah at 4. Will we ever see Cam Rising play this season? We'll never know. But I think they're an obvious pick at 4. I do think they beat BYU, but they have Iowa State left on the schedule. I'm going to chalk that one up as a loss.
If we don't see Cam Rising the rest of the way, this Utah team, in my opinion, is not in our top 4. This Utah team slides way down. The Cam Rising shit, man, we could do a whole episode over this. This is like a 30 for 30 at this point. Jesus Christ. But yeah, my number 1 is Kansas State. I had them going 11-1 with their only loss being to BYU at BYU. That was just a weird football game for them. Things kind of fell apart. I think it made them realize a lot of things about this football team. I think Avery Johnson's the best quarterback in the Big 12. So I really think Kansas State can really get this thing humming down the stretch. Their toughest game being at Iowa State, and I think that game does decide the conference. Iowa State's my number 2 at 11-1, with their only loss being to Kansas State that I'm predicting, and I think they win at Utah. Number 3 for me is BYU at 10-2. Their toughest games being Oklahoma State at Utah left. I think they drop both those games. I think Oklahoma State they're going to be coming off a bye into that football game. I think Oklahoma State gets right. And I think they hopefully find Ollie Gordon and make some moves. I don't know if BYU can slow down Ollie Gordon. My number 4 is Utah, like we just talked about. If Cam Rising plays, this is an easy number 4 for me. If Cam Rising plays the rest of the way, this is a Utah team that we could probably see at our number 1, 2, or 3 going forward. But I'm just hesitant, man. I don't trust anything coming out of that camp, period. I don't even know what to say about it at this point. But their toughest games being BYU and Iowa State the rest of the way. I think they beat BYU, and I think they lose to Iowa State. This was a really tough conference for me as well, because the Big 12 is just so damn wide open. I mean, we've said it week in, week out. This is the People's Conference, and this thing, all bets are off. Anything can happen here. I just think Kansas State's the best football team. I want to change my mind now.
Yeah, I want to buzz in real quick. I messed up and said BYU has a loss. They do not. I misused words. I think their only losses, like Colin said, are Oklahoma State and Utah. I was thinking of Arizona, so that's my bad.
Yeah.
But I agree.
Speaking
with
of Arizona, what a botched job this weekend. Sorry, go ahead, bro.
No, you're right. You're good. I just want to correct myself. Yeah, that was a horrible game they played against Texas Tech.
Speaking of, I mean, are we not giving Texas Tech credit? I mean, they're 5-1 at this point. Do we need to put them on our? I don't think they're a good football team. So it's really hard for me to sit here and try to talk up Texas Tech the rest of the way. You know, with games at Iowa State, they do host Colorado, who I don't think is a good football team either. They play at Oklahoma State. They play at home against West Virginia. Are we misjudging Texas Tech? Can they find their way in?
I don't know. They just had a lot of close games thus far with some pretty, I wouldn't say bad opponents, but some subpar opponents. I mean, they barely beat Cincinnati. They lost to Washington State. They only beat Abilene Christian by 1 point. So I think that's the reason why they're a little bit down on our list.
Yeah, I'm with that. I was just making sure I wasn't missing something here because, I mean, we look up and they're 5-1, and that blows my mind.
Dave, who do you got?
So man, I got Iowa State, but because I truly think that Iowa State wins out. I don't think Iowa State falls to Kansas State. I think they're a much better football program. They're not going to lose out Utah. Then I got BYU right after that. I don't think they lose Oklahoma State. And Colin, you made a point of Ollie Gordon. Man, have you looked at his stats? He's averaging 3.8 yards.
It's pitiful, man. I don't understand. I don't understand how this happens. I mean, what are they not doing? Is it because no team believes? Is it because no team's scared of Allen Bowman in this passing attack? Because I can believe that. But I mean, my Lord, at some point, like we've talked about, X factor players, big name players, you know, top round talent players have to play like it, whether their team around them plays like it or not. Yeah, at that point, put the team on your back.
But yeah, so I mean, I think Oklahoma State's biggest weapon is going to be really Ollie Gordon. If he can seem to turn it on, and at this point, I don't have much belief in him. So that's why I got BYU at 2, because their only loss maybe Utah. But even then, I still think BYU gets the dub there. I'm
just having a really hard time giving the nod to BYU. I don't know why that is.
I mean,
maybe
no,
that's just me. I'm just having a really hard time accepting the fact that BYU is actually this good.
And I don't even think that it's necessarily that they're that good. I just don't think their schedule's that difficult moving forward. But then I got Kansas State. I have Kansas State at number 3. I do think they're a good program, but I do think that they lose Iowa State, so then that puts them at 2 losses. So it's hard for me to put a 2-loss Kansas State above a BYU that I think could even win out. You know, I think Iowa State and BYU could go undefeated the rest of the season. And then Utah, I'm with you, Colin. If Cam Rising's out, I mean, I have them falling apart. But yeah, they'll lose to Iowa State, and they might even lose to BYU. You know, even with Cam Rising. I still think they still might lose that game. It's a toss-up. If they have him at the quarterback position, they have a good chance. But if not, it's a loss. So that is why I got my 4. I know all of ours are very different. But, yeah, I'm mine and, I mean, we all have essentially the same top 4, just in different positions. And anything could happen.
Yeah, I think it just comes down to who beats who on a given day, honestly.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And like we just said many times, and we're going to say it again, the Big 12, man, People's Conference. This is so much fun to watch the Big 12 play football. But kind of talking about how I can't necessarily get myself to buy into BYU, I'm going to lead that right into my ACC picks because I couldn't even give you a 4th team. The ACC was extremely hard for me, too. I think they're an extremely top-heavy conference. You know, at my number 4, I kicked around Louisville. I kicked around Pitt. But Pitt's a team for me like BYU, man. I cannot buy into this. Eli Holstein looks good so far, yes. But, man, they've played nobody. They haven't played a good defense yet. Their toughest defense they've played is probably West Virginia. And I just can't buy in. Yeah, exactly. I can't confidently give a number 4. But if you put a gun to my head and you're going to make me pick one, I guess I would say Pitt. But, I mean, looking ahead, man, they got SMU, who I have at my number 3 in the ACC. They have Clemson, who I have at my number 2 in the ACC. They have Louisville, who I kicked around, put in my number 4 in the ACC. They play Boston College at Boston College, where Thomas Castellanos could absolutely dice up this Pitt defense any day of the week. So it was really hard for me to pick a number 4. So to be honest, fellas, I wimped out, man. I didn't pick one. So my number 3, I have SMU at 10-2, wrapping up the season with, so shockingly enough, their only other loss being to Pitt. So maybe there's my answer. Maybe I put Pitt at my number 4 spot. My number 2, I have Clemson. I have them finishing up at 11-1. Their toughest games ahead At Virginia Tech, I have them winning that one. At Pitt, have them winning that one handily. Host to South Carolina, and I have them winning that football game. I think they will have their hands full in that South Carolina football game. But remember, even if they drop that one, doesn't matter in the ACC because it's an out-of-conference football game. My number one, Miami. They should probably have 2 losses right now, but guess what? They don't. Their toughest game ahead, at Louisville, I think they win that game. I had Miami going 12-0 before the season started. I'm going to stick with it right now. I'm not going to back off. They're undefeated. Haven't looked great the last 2 weeks, but guess what? They're finding ways to win football games. So I'm going to give the nod to Miami at my number 1. Wouldn't shock me to see Clemson up there. I think this is a very top-heavy 2-horse race between Miami and Clemson. I do want to give credit to SMU, and their schedule is really weak moving forward, so it really, really helps them. But I don't think they're the caliber football team of Clemson or Miami.
I definitely agree with you. I think it's a Clemson-Miami 1-2 at the top. I have Clemson at 1, Miami 2, SMU 3, and Pitt 4. I do believe Miami has the easier schedule moving forward, so you could easily slide them to 1. But like Colin said, they should probably have 2 losses. They should give Christmas presents to every referee that refed both those games. They gifted both of those games to them in a box and handed it to them for Christmas. And Christmas isn't even until December, in my opinion. Anyway, and then I got
the
Miami
officials put a
2.
bow on it. They put a bow on it.
Yeah, especially that game against Cal. I mean, how that wasn't a targeting penalty on that defensive play there in the late 4th, and then they had 2 blown calls on their offensive drive to win the game. They got lucky, and they also got lucky against Virginia Tech too. So
to interrupt on that though, Cal just flat shit the bed.
Oh, 100%.
Cal just flat shit the bed though. I mean, the officials blew it at the end, but Cal should have never let them get back in the football game. So Miami did do their part there. Just wanted.
I that's why I have Miami too. I think they drop 1. I think possibly Louisville, but I don't see another loss in the end of the rest of their schedule. I do think Clemson's the best team in the ACC, so I have them at 1. And then, like Colin said, it's very hard to pick the next 3, 4, 5, 6 team in this conference. So I went with SMU and Pitt for the same reasons he did. I think SMU's only other loss is to Pitt, and then Pitt's playing well right now, but they have the meat of their schedule coming up, so we'll see how they play moving down the stretch.
I'm just trying to process how you put Clemson above Miami. Because Miami's going to win out. Like let's just be. It's a realistic scenario. There's a higher chance of them winning out than them losing.
Well, to go to bat for Brian on this, Clemson, if you really look at it, Clemson could win out too, and their only loss could be to Georgia, who's an out-of-conference opponent. So I mean, at the end, the way it shakes out, they could both be undefeated conference teams because Miami and Clemson don't square off. So I mean, Clemson right now does look better than Miami. I almost put Clemson above Miami. I just didn't because I had Miami preseason 12-0. So I'm just sticking with my gut on that one right now. But Clemson might do it, Dave. Seriously.
I think they might do it, but I don't think they have the players to get that far. It's kind of
where do you have Clemson at? I'm anxious to hear this.
So I'm gonna go ahead and give you what I got so far. Miami, SMU, Pitt, Clemson, and hear me out.
Woo!
As I heard you guys
Clemson at 4 is a joke.
Clemson at number 4, son. Enlighten me.
Hear me out. So I guess I didn't really take into account how difficult Pitt's schedule was moving forward. They were undefeated, so that's kind of why the only reason I put it there. But looking at their schedule, holy smokes! I mean, it's tough. I mean, you're not, man.
At worst, go ahead and swap Pitt and Clemson. I mean, I'm gonna do everything I can to talk you into at least that.
I can see SMU or Clemson, but not Pitt.
I'm 100% in with that. With swapping out Clemson and Pitt, like now that I look at it, I don't have a way to argue that Pitt should be above Clemson. When I really
SMU, Dave, you know, you could end up getting this right because SMU's schedule moving forward is super weak as well. I mean, they have Pitt remaining as their hardest game. So
and by that point, by the time they play, you know, Pitt will already have played Cal and Syracuse, and I wouldn't be surprised if they drop one of those. I mean, probably not, but it wouldn't shock me. So SMU's got an easier schedule moving forward. That's why I have them behind us. Miami. I don't know that SMU will drop any of those. down the stretch. But yeah, I mean, I'll put Clemson at my number 3 and Pitt at number 4. I just don't believe in what Dabo Swinney's doing over there at Clemson.
I'm with you on the Dabo experiment, man. I'm with you on that. I do agree. I do agree.
Transfer portal.
Yeah, I agree, man. But I also think that he has the biggest point to prove of anybody right now. Well, I say that other than Mario Cristobal, because we've talked at length about how Mario Cristobal just needs to get the hell out of the way and just recruit. He shouldn't even be there on Saturdays. He should be out on the recruiting trail. That's where he shines. It's not the X's and O's of football. So stay the hell out of Cam Ward's way. Rhett Lashley, the coach at SMU, has a little bit to prove, but hey, this is year 1 in the ACC, man. So I mean, he's doing the damn thing right now. They really should be undefeated. I mean, I think that they could have won that BYU game. Should have won that BYU game. Looking back, and here they've got a win against Florida State, which Florida State sucks, but Florida State's never an easy team to go beat though. Regardless, Louisville, that's a big win. So I'm gonna flip my SMU loss to Pitt, and I talked myself right into SMU winning this and going 11-1 down the stretch and being undefeated in conference play. The real question is how does Miami, Clemson, and SMU all avoid each other on the schedule? How does that happen?
Man, that's crazy. It really is.
I mean, that'll make some exciting football if these teams stay apart down the stretch in this conference play. I'm really looking forward to how that plays out.
This might be a conference to watch for a tiebreaker scenario of some sort, not just some easy head-to-head, something deep down in the rules.
This is going to be like points against similar points against what is like similar opponents.
Common opponents or something like that.
Common opponents. There it is. There's the word I was looking for, common. And then them words get me sometimes. But yeah, this is going to be something they dig, the ACC digs shit out of their ass crack and pulls it out. And they're like, hey, right here it is.
And Miami number 1.
ACC. Absolutely. I mean, they're already on the officials telling them that the way it looks. So absolutely.
All right, guys, what's our group of 5 team?
I mean, we know what Collins is. Let's be real. He had that.
This is easy for me.
Beginning. But no, I'm with him. I am on the Ashton Genty train.
I agree as well.
Until he gets hurt, I'm riding it out.
Let's play devil's advocate. Is there any chance we could see Army or Navy in this spot?
I haven't looked at their schedule.
Let me pull up Navy's schedule. I think Navy's better than Army. So let me pull up Navy's schedule real quick, and let's just see if there's any chance that Navy could actually make a run at this and find a way, because that would be the coolest story of the college football season, in my opinion, if you see Navy squeak into the playoffs.
I want to pull up Army's schedule.
Army, while I'm looking at it now, I mean, they're playing Notre Dame and
they play Notre Dame.
Navy plays Notre Dame. Notre Dame, if either one of these teams beat Notre Dame, and then let's say Navy beats Notre Dame, and then Navy plays Army at the end of the season, and Navy beats Army, Navy's in.
Could you imagine? I can see Navy being in.
Could you imagine 2 11-1 teams, Army-Navy game actually mean something for the college football playoff?
Well, would be absolutely incredible, because don't those two play each other by themselves, like on a weekend, like just like the only game or something going on that weekend?
But I think you're right.
This is a good question. Don't they come out with the final standings before that game, because it's December 14th?
Ooh.
Or is it the next day?
It's the next day. You're right. It's the next 15th. Day. It's the next day.
That'd be wild. That'd be wild if Army-Navy game was for the last spot in the college football playoff.
Dude, is this right? Is Navy really scoring 43.6 points a game?
Yeah.
And they're throwing the football.
Yeah, this is not just a triple option team from the past.
I got to rethink my Boise. I mean, I think Boise State's a better football team. I don't think Navy slows down Ashton Genty if they were playing head-to-head. But the way this shakes out, Navy could actually do this.
Yep. And Army the same way.
Is Navy better than Army? As I say, is Navy better than Army?
I think right now, I think you give a slight nod to Navy. But Army's playing good too.
Army's
they just dog-walked Tulsa 49-7.
Army's definitely more run-heavy, the way it looks.
Yes.
And I'll be candid, man. I know Army and Navy are both undefeated, and I know they're both good. But I haven't, and I put Navy on our Book It segment a lot, but I haven't really dove in and watched a whole Navy football game or an Army one. But they 100% have my attention now, and I'm going to tune in to watch them. And Brian, I think the coolest story of the year, I think you're onto that. If Navy and Army could both come into this thing at 11-1 with their only losses being to the same team at Notre Dame, dude, that'd be badass. That'd be the coolest story of college football season.
Yeah, usually the only reason we watch it because it's the only one that's on that game.
That's
for that
the
day.
only reason.
But if it was for playoff implications to get the last spot, dude, that would be awesome.
Dude, if we have a Boise State running back win the Heisman and an Army Navy 11-1 or 12-0, 11-1, whatever matchup, dude, this would be the most legendary college football season of all time. That would be sweet as shit. I'm on board. Army Navy, let's go. Book it.
I'm gonna go ahead and be a bit of it. I think
be a Debbie Downer, Dave. Be your negative ass. Bring it on.
Hey, listen, no. Hear me out. My thing is that Navy's gonna play Tulane. Now, yes, Tulane did lose to Oklahoma, but they hung in there darn good with Kansas State. And we talked about, Colin, you're big on Kansas State. They only lost 27-34 to Kansas State first game of the season. And then they've been putting up numbers. I mean, they put 41 on Louisiana. They put 45 on South Florida. They put 71 on UAB. I mean, listen, when you can score 71 points in one football game, you got some firepower. So
you got a point. You got a point. That game's at Navy, though.
But Dave, Army just dog walked Tulsa 49-7 last week. Or you said Tulane or Tulsa?
Tulane.
He's on Tulane. He's on Tulane. He's on
Tulane. Sorry, never mind. I'm a dumbass.
But hey, that game's at Navy, man. I'm gonna give the nod to Navy, Dave. Hey, give the nod to the Service Academy, David.
Hey, listen, I think they do win out, but I'm just saying that is the only game I see could go wrong.
Yeah,
no, that's a great point. You are onto something with that. I'm 100%. You are right.
I don't think
we can't put the carriage in front of the horse. You're right. Navy has to take care of business because Navy can drop any game on that schedule, and so can Army. So you are 100% correct about that.
Yeah, Army probably has the easier schedule of the two.
Yes.
I think Navy's playing better football, so they could possibly, even though they have a little harder schedule, still win out, maybe have one loss in there somewhere. But it'll be fun to see how it plays out.
Another section that you guys love to talk about and hear about is our top 25 rankings, because they're going to be different. If you win, we're going to move you up. If you lose, you're going to move down. If you play bad, we're going to move you down, because we're doing a lot of eye tests, starting clean every week. So I'm going to go ahead and get right into it with our honorable mentions, because we just got done talking about them. Army, Navy, we've got them in honorable mention. They could finish out really well. After talking about it, our number 25 is Mizzou. We got Mizzou at number 25, but Army and Navy could knock Mizzou off easily. And I'm only not knocking them off because of who they play, and that's it. But then I'm just going to go straight through it. 24, we got Illinois. 23, Oklahoma. 22, Nebraska. 21, Ashton Genty University. Number 20, we got Utah. 19, we got SMU. 18, K-State. 17, Pittsburgh. 16, we got Notre Dame. 15, Indiana. Number 14, LSU. 13, Tennessee. Number 12, Alabama. Number 11, Ole Miss. Number 10, Texas A&M. Number 9, Clemson. 8, BYU. Number 7, Miami. 6, Iowa State. Number 5, University of Georgia and Carson Beck. Number 4, University of Oregon. Number 3, Penn State. Number 2, Ohio State. And number 1, the University of Texas.
So I don't want to spend a ton of time on this because we've had really good content throughout this episode, and we've really dove into each conference, and we've dove into kind of our group of 5 picks here. But the one thing I want to talk about on this list before we get out of here, should Ohio State be over Texas?
No.
I don't think so as it's right now.
My vote is for Ohio State.
I'm going to turn around on you. Why should Ohio State be above Texas?
I think Ohio State should be above Texas because I think the Iowa win, in my opinion, is better than the Michigan win. I think Michigan's terrible, man. Like I said on our last episode, yeah, Texas going in and beating Michigan at the Big House speaks volume. But I think Ohio State is just flat ass taking care of business every single week. Beat Iowa 35-7. Beat Michigan State 38-7. They are flat taking care of business, and they're almost flying under the radar because we're just like, oh, well, Ohio State, just another big win, taking care of business. Like Texas's second best win is Mississippi State, and that's bad. That is bad. I mean, my vote's Ohio State, and I'm not saying I'm right. I just wanted to see what you guys thought, and I know we had 2 out of 3 on this, and that's the way we go with our picks on our top 25. But I just wanted to bring up a light conversation about why I think Ohio State should be over Texas. I think Ohio State's resume is better. I really do.
Yeah, I think you have a valid point. I think we're just kind of splitting hairs there a little bit.
We are.
But Texas, I mean, their only big win really is Michigan, and they may not be a big win anymore, but they haven't faulted yet. Neither has Ohio State. They were just ranked higher to begin with. I think that's the reason they're still there.
So, real quick, last thing. If Texas and Ohio State square off at a neutral site right now, what would you guys put the line at? Because obviously I have no idea. I'm just.
I think it's probably Ohio State by like 4 or 5 points.
I don't know, man.
I think I'm with you. I think Ohio State's the favorite, but I was going to put it at like -1.5. Like you said, we're splitting hairs.
Who's playing QB for Texas?
Quinn Ewers.
Both teams are healthy.
Then it's probably closer. All things equal. Yeah, I would agree.
If it's Arch Manning, I think it's a higher odd or spread for Ohio State, honestly.
Yep. I think why I think Ohio State is the favorite and the better team if they played head-to-head, why I would take Ohio State to win is I think Ohio State's run game prevails in that football game. Texas doesn't really have one. They're really thin at that position. They're relying on some receivers to really step up, and they've stepped up against these really weak defenses they've played so far. I want to see them tested before I can comfortably say Texas beats Ohio State. I think Ohio State has proven year in, year out they got the guys that can do it. Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Egbuka, in my opinion, I think are better than any receiver that Texas has. I mean, I know Isaiah Bonds looked really good, but I'm going to give the nod to all things Ohio State at every position, I think they're the one spot I would give Texas is the quarterback, which is huge, but I'm going to give the nod to Ohio State at running back, at receiver, O-line, D-line, second. I mean, we haven't even talked about Caleb Downs. I mean, they had the best safety in college football. So I give the nod to Ohio State at every position except quarterback. Just wanted to have that, put that in your ear.
Colin, to your point, speaking of quarterback, here's my thing, because we're seeing it play. If you don't have a good quarterback, it don't matter how good your receivers are. What's going on with these guys?
Will Howard's way better than Brady Cook, though. I think Will Howard can get the ball to his receivers. He's proven that.
Yeah,
but that's my thing. I mean, Texas has a quarterback. You can win a ball game even if you don't have great receivers. But if you don't have a good quarterback, get that ball to those receivers. I mean, anything can happen. But no, it could go either way. I agree.
I hear you. And Quinn Ewers has been there, done that. He's played in bigger games than Will Howard. So I hear you on that for sure. Like Brian said, we're just splitting hairs. I was just really curious as to what you guys thought on that.
Hey, tell you what, Texas true colors are going to be shown in these next 2 weeks.
Yep, they got some tough games, so we're going to find out who they are.
Same with Ohio State. They play Oregon.
Yep.
Man.
We got a full platter here, boys.
It's going to be fun. 10-12.
Hey, that brings us to our next point. Throughout the week, later in the week, we're going to do our week 7. This season's flying by. Jesus. Week 7 preview. We're going to break some games down for you. Stay tuned throughout the week. Look for our content. We're coming at you consistently, dropping the goods here. I have Bryant with me and Dave here with me. This is the Deep Threat Sports Network. You can find us on Twitter at DT_sports_. Facebook, Deep Threat Sports Network. Instagram, Deep Threat Sports with a Z. Spotify, Deep Threat Sports. TikTok, Deep Threat Sports Network. Fellas, this has been a blast. I've loved breaking this down with you guys. I loved hearing what you guys had to say about each conference, each team. I think we all had valid points. Dave, Bryant, you both have kind of made me raise my eyebrows and kind of, go back and forth and hem-haw around about some of my picks. Hope I did the same for you guys. Hope we brought a lot of really good content and details for you guys out there listening. Raise your guys' eyebrows a little bit. If you don't like our top 25, leave comments. Tell us where we sucked at. Tell us what you liked. Tell us your opinions, man. shoot us an email. I mean, anything. You can reach out to us. We will accept it all. But fellas, hey, until next time, peace.